Oh, hey there. It's your old pal Jordan here. Just getting some tires glued up for next weekend's race, which for you is last weekend's race. I'll be back with you in just a minute. We're gonna get these glued and then get to the rear end assembly here. In the meantime, some tea with some local honey. That's not as good as coffee. How's ragweed been in your area? We're still record high here. It's a grand time. Yeah, I'm gonna glue. We can get back to working. See you in just a minute. So in case you're wondering, normally I would run the J-Concept Super Soft 3Ds, and this year I'm going to be running the J-Concept Super Soft Subcultures, which I am going to soak up in some sticky kicks and get them a little softer, because it's supposed to be really cool. So I'm trying to get these down to about a mega soft kind of, or ultra soft if you're familiar with AK or J-Concept's other things. Basically really soft, because it's going to be chilly, and so that's why it's called Chill in the Hill. By the time you see this video, I'll have already ran them, and well, the video that you'll get to see is will be a race vlog of how they did. I'm also going to be running something similar on the buggy. So on the buggy, I've got some rehabs for the front. They did not have any rear end stock, so I had to do with what I could. And I got some... Alright, so we submitted a return for those tires that were the wrong ones, and we ordered the correct ones, and guess what? The rehabs are in stock. So we're going to be running green rehabs all the way around on this buggy that we're building. So let's get back to that build, shall we? All right, so we're gonna move on to bag 3 here. I did find out this long aluminum piece right here. This is actually a chassis flex plate. So more screws, less flex, less screws, more flex. So it works very much like putting the waterfall brace on or taking the waterfall brace off of an associated vehicle. So go ahead and slice into this and we'll get going. So go ahead, pause the video, slice into your bag, get everything lined out, and then we'll get this rear end going here. Now one thing that you'll notice is we have a lot of pills here to pop out, so you're gonna be popping more pills than a pharmacist, and we're gonna go ahead and open this bag up. So let's go ahead and pop all these pills out, get them in a pile, open the bag up of hardware, get it in here as well. So make sure you have everything ready to rock, and we'll be ready to go in 3, 2, 1. All right, one thing I do want to say real quick here is you'll notice you have open and closed. So open are these ones with the holes in the middle, closed are the racks that are not closed in the middle. You want to use the closed ones for this. It's showing you to use the closed center dot, actually 1 degree to the corner on both of them. So just remember that. So you need 1 degree to the corner on both of them. The rest of them you can go ahead and put it in a container. So I got everything laid out finally. There's quite a bit there to go through, and we will have bearings that we'll need to come to later on. We'll have some, what size of bearings are those? Those will be when we get to the rear drive here. So we'll worry about those later. I think they're what are they? I don't know. 10 by 15s and 5 by 12s. We'll worry about those later. For now, we're going to be building this section here, which starts with number 10, right? Actually, sorry, that is shims. Front rear arm shim, 3 by 6.5 by 2. 3 by 6.5 by 2. That's these thick guys here, I'm guessing. Nope. It's going to be the middle ones. That's the plastic ones that look like ball stud washers. Yes. Okay, so you're gonna need those. You're gonna need your 2 arms. Oh, now I did it. Which are actually labeled right and left. So get your right and lefts there. Wait, is that the arm shim inside the arm? Well, isn't that a cool way of doing it? So it's not these things. These are ball stud washers. Because these, that's the right size? It is. And the right thickness. Well, that's super cool. I just noticed those in there. So don't miss those tucked in your arms. Oh geez. Well, hopefully that didn't go in my tea. Is there any plastic in here? Nope. We're okay. See? No plastic. Move that over there. Gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. I thought the whole point of luxury design was you didn't have to deal with this kind of stuff. Shouldn't have to shave off any additional pieces, right? If it's luxury. I'm thinking it's like the Ferrari of RC cars. Everything's meticulously done on a Ferrari. Well, I mean, if it's just 2 washers out of the whole kit, it's not that bad. So we'll see how it goes as we continue here. So we've got those. We've got our 4 one in the corner pills, or eccentric bushings as they call them. And they are the closed. When we need our 2, our C and D mount, or as they call them, rear and rear front. That's not confusing at all. We need our 48 millimeter, so our longer pins. Okay. And then we need our flex plate. 4 3x8 button head and 4 3x5 button head. So the 3x5 is going to be super short guys here. Super short guys. 3x8s are going to be your next shortest. We need thread lock. So now we're going to reach over to the bag and grab some thread lock. So we got our thread lock, we got our screws, we got all of our stuff. Let's go ahead and put our pills in here. So I'm assuming the X-ray side where it says X-ray faces the back. It looks like that would be how it would be. And they want these to the bottom in. Right? Yes. All right, so bottom in. Bottom in. The kit setting is, I think, 3 and 2, if I remember right. Yeah, 3 degrees toe in and 2 degrees of anti-squat. So there's our rear one. Our front one, yeah, there's the notch to pop them out. So you want to push them in on that side. And is it in as well? Yep, in and down, just like the rears. In and down. Okay. If you notice that there's a U shape here, the U shape faces up. Notice that U shape faces up. I just realized my lighting's not where it's supposed to be. Give me 1 second, I'll get that fixed for you. Hard to tell what's going on when our lighting is not in the right direction. There, it was facing off, splayed out to the outsides instead of down, so this should make it a little easier from here out. So we've got those done, got that done. And slide our hinge pin through our arms. Once the bushing on the inside, between the arm and the C block. Okay. Simple enough. Those are very nice machined. It says you might need a reamer, but you do not need a reamer in those. Those are very nicely done. And down, and down. Okay. You can see our 3 degrees of toe in. You can see how it's splayed out. Good. Just double check and make sure everything's in the right spot. So we're going to slide these up. We're going to use our paper towel sitting over here and make sure that we have our thread lock coming out. And it is good. All right, so now we grab this fancy chassis. Fancy chassis. Aluminum chassis brace. Aluminum chassis. It is an aluminum chassis. It feels like titanium. Even rings like titanium. So cool. It's 2 millimeter. Oh, wait, flexy. Okay. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and put the rear arms on first. And put those screws in, just started back here. Which is going to be with our 2 millimeter. That's a 1.5. There's 2. And these are going to be our 3x8s. I just want to get this held in place just so I'm not fighting it as much while I'm trying to get other things done, you know. I gotta say, it feels backwards to me putting together a kit from the rear end first, considering on Associated you always put together the front end first. And this just feels so off. Just off. It's not a bad thing, it's just a preference thing. It's just odd is all. All right, so now those are at least in there holding that in place so that it's not just flopping all around. We'll have to wipe off the excess here in a minute, but there's going to be quite a bit, I'm thinking. So, all right, so then this goes here. Sure enough. Okay. So that goes there. This is a spot where you need a few hands. Goodness. Because you're trying to hold that brace while holding the C block. Imagine if I didn't have the D block already somewhat screwed in. That would be a pain in the rear. And then we're going to try to line that up and fish it through. And hopefully go through everything. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and tighten up our rears now. I always find this to be kind of a fun question, so let me know in the comments, what time are you working on your kit with me? Is it the middle of the night? Is it early in the morning? Is it midday? Right now here it is 10:50 p.m., so almost 11 p.m. I just wipe that excess off there. All right, so there's that in place. Now these four here are going to go into our flex brace, which, as I said before, you can put up to 8 screws in there to really stiffen that up. We're just doing 4 because we're going to build it just like the kit. Being as though it's on a pretty loose track, outside when I'm running this, I may be taking this all the way off. Not all the way off as in out, but all the way off as in taking these front brace screws out of it, or even just running 2 instead of 4. That's something I'm going to play around with and see how it affects the handling for sure, because that's something that's not on associated cars, and I really like the idea of being able to adjust the actual chassis flex with more than just taking the waterfall brace on or off, because that gives you either no flex or all the flex, and it's nice having something you can put in between like this. It's a pretty cool design, actually. I don't know if maybe that evolved from carpet racing or what, but I've never seen it on the dirt side, and pretty awesome, actually. All right, so then grab our paper towel, wipe off our excess blue goo. There we go. And there's those parts in place, so that step is done. I can move on to back here. Looks like we're going to set the chassis to the side for a moment. We're going to bring our rear end housing back, and then our shock tower. Again, this is a huge shock tower, so that just sets on there like so. Let's see, can we see if we can count the ply here, just because I'm really curious. This is really thick. This is like 14 or 15 ply. It's a lot of layer of carbon fiber there, so good to see that being so solid. Looks like the 4 notches right here are supposed to face towards the block. Correct? Yes. Okay, so then we have 2 3x10s and 2 3x16s. So our 3x16s are our longest ones. 3x10s are what I believe these are that we have the most of. Yes, so these ones that we are the most of here are 3x10s. So we'll grab 2 of those. And for this, since we're going into nylon, we'll get the Ugga Dugga. The smaller ones go on the top, and then the longer ones go on the bottom of these 4 holes that line up the bulkhead. Ooh, I just burned my finger. The very tip of that screw came through and just burnt my finger. That hurt. That's when you really just want to yell out curse words, profanities, things like that, because, you know, that singed a little bit. All right, so there is that. Oh, geez. Well, you know, it's starting to look like part of a buggy now. So once this is on there, it'll look like a bit more of a buggy. And as you progress, it starts looking a little bit more like a buggy until it is. Next is going to be our wing mounts. These are obviously not going to go on this side because your wing doesn't go underneath above this. It would have to go like this way. Factory setting, it looks like they're saying is to go all the way up. Perfect. I was going to say I'm going to run mine all the way up anyway. So factory setting is where I would want to run it. And it's going to be with 4 more of these 3x10s. And we've got these, so got looks like some 3x12s, 14s, and 3x12s and 14s possibly. Yeah, I think these 4 are the same. Yeah, sure. Man, that is just burning. Did not think I got my finger that good, but definitely did. Definitely did. Oop, a little snug on that one. So there is our wing mount in place. It's a good looking wing mount actually. It's pretty solid. I think it's going to hold up pretty well, which is good because outdoor can get a little sketchy sometimes. All right, now we need 2 3x10s, that's these guys, and 4 3x8s, so the rest of our countersunks. So there's the rest of our countersunks, and we bring our chassis back over. And then we're going to need to drop this guy the right direction and not the wrong direction, which is what I almost did. All right, and then line it up. I'm going to go ahead and put the 2 middle ones in, which are going to be these little guys here. Sorry? Yes. And there's that. And then we're going to go ahead and get these 3x10s in the very front here. You're going through a few different layers, that's why they're longer ones. Just give it 3 or 4 ugga-duggas and you'll know it's torqued to the right amount. Or 3 or 4 wrist pops if you're using hand tools. So there is our rear end. These are a little bit tight just from being fresh and they were loose before we got them actually connected. So we know that they're loose. It's just the friction from being actually fastened now. Now we're going to move on to step 2 in bag 10 here, which is going to be our rear CV axles and the good old dreaded turnbuckles. Looks like we're going to use the 4 on the end. So we'll go ahead and pop those off of here. And I guess save the rest for later because we've got 4 more turnbuckles to do in this thing. Yeah. Everything's got 6. Let's go ahead and take our X-Acto actually and shave off those edges on those turnbuckles before we get too far and then come to it and forget to do it again. And yes, I did just poke my finger with my X-Acto. It's always a nice feeling. So you can tell this is an exploded view of all of it. So now we're just going to turn the page, and we're going to start with the drive axles. It shows them as being pink. They are not pink. They are indeed black. You'll need your black grease for this as well, your graphite grease, to put on the actual ends of the axles. And grab a piece of paper towel as well and get that ready to go, because you are going to get black grease all over everything if you don't have that ready. All right, so we have our out drives, axle shabs. We're going to get these two little black steel pieces that have multiple different holes in them. Those are the swivels for in here. And then two of the very small steel pins. Cool. These are just like normal. So if you haven't done one of these before, I'll show you before we get grease on here. Your small coupling here has a hole through the middle and a hole through the sides. That hole through the sides is going to go straight through, and make sure that hole through the middle is facing up through the slit in the axle. And then your out drive is going to slide over top of it, just like that. And just be careful to hold it just right. And then carefully slide the pin in, and then it will go all the way through as you work it through. I don't want to do that just yet because I need to put grease in here first. But that's how it works. And if you don't grease these, you're going to burn up your axles because they'll get hot and they'll warp. So I usually put a little bit right on the very tip of that little flat spot right there. And then put some down inside here as well. And the reason you put it in the middle like that is so that when you push this coupling in, it'll actually run the grease through and grease that as it's going in. And then you can take your excess and put it back over on the other side as well. That way you're making sure that it's well lubricated and can disperse the heat. Then when you take this side on, you'll see there's a divot in there where that flat spot of grease is there. It's going to smoosh it in like that. And then drop your drive pin through and try to line up the 47 holes you have to go through. And hold your mouth just right like fishing, and it should drop in just like that. And once you get that done, you grab the top of it and just kind of spin it in circles until it starts to whip around like that. And then once you feel that clicking go away, you know that it is well lubricated down inside there. You don't want to over lubricate it because you don't want it to just start gushing grease out everywhere, because that would be just as bad as no grease at all, because then grease starts spewing all over your car. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side, making sure that it's greased for all of its couplings. You will get your fingers grease stained black. That's how my nails got the way they are. And then hope and pray you get the final pin in, because for some reason the second pin is always harder than the first one. And I don't ever understand why. There we go, got it in. Give it a spinny spin spin, and there you go. Those are set and ready to go. Now we're going to move on to the actual hub itself. And put our grease up. Make sure your fingers are clean before you move on to the next part, and try to keep as much grease streaks down as possible. So there we've got this guy here. Now what is that exactly? Very interesting. So those bushings, the eccentric bushings or pills that we had that had the holes in them, we need to get those back out. So if you did what I did and you already put them in a tray, pull the tray back out, dig through it, try to find all of those, because, well, we need them now. So something tells me that those of you who are a little bit more smarter on X-ray than I am saw me put the pills in the container and said, well, he's going to get learned in a couple pages. And I did. So on the bottom of your hubs is little squares. And these pills or eccentric bushings go in here. And the hold ones are so that the outer pin for the arm can actually go through it. So if you're familiar with Associated, they've got the long ones that already have the kick-up angle through them. And these are actually set to go side to side. And it looks like the kick-up angle can be changed just by changing the pills to a certain angle. So that's interesting. Definitely a unique design that I've not seen on anything else. So you've got center orientation, corner orientation, or side orientation. This one wants us to do corners. And if you notice, these are not 1 or 0.5. They are just corner, straight, or center. And so we're going to get 4 cornered ones, 2 for each hub. And that is where we're going to go. The rest of these are going to go back into the container, unless they're on the front as well for the caster blocks. And then, we'll pull them back out again. So for now, we'll put them up so we don't lose them. But keep them separated this time. Don't just throw them all together with the other pills. Where was I? Oh, yes. Yes, got those for the next step. Right now we're over here. Bearings. We need to go to our bearing bag. And need to pull out our last 2 10 by 15 by 4s. And you're also going to need 5 by 12 by 4s, which I believe are these guys here. Because they've got the little center and they're much bigger. So yes, those. And then these unsealed 5 by 10 by 4s, I'm not sure what they're for yet. We'll see, I guess. There's quite a few different bearings in this kit. And then we've got 2 by 5. You'll see that's these little dudes here. These are going to be 1.5 driver. Do not thread lock these. These go into your aluminum axle for clamping hexes. If you thread like these, they will snap, and then you'll never get them back out again, and you'll have to buy all new clamping hexes. Ask me how I know. It's real fun when you do it in the middle of a race, and you pull your driver off. The only thing on there is the head of the screw. Did that last year at Chill on the Hill, so I don't want to do it again this year. So once you get your bearings in the side that's the likeness, you'll be able to see one side's big side, one side's little side. They won't go in the other way around. Well, at least the big one won't. Then you grab your axle and just stick it through the inner 10 by 15 is actually what holds your pin in. And then there's 2 more pins here. These are the same size as the axle pin. These are actually your what's called the axle pin. This would be the CB pin, even though they're the same. That goes through there like so. You drop your clamping hex down on there. Make sure it's all the way down. So you're not clamping it further out than it needs to be and messing with your track geometry, because you don't want to change up the track of the vehicle either. And then just like the thrust bolt that's in our ball diff, 2 fingers tight. Any tighter than that, you'll snap the head right off that screw. And then you basically have to go buy new parts before you get your kit finished. And same for this one. Push it through, make sure your bearings all stay seated. Axle pin. And then your hex. And then turn it in, and then as soon as you're there, 2 fingers snug. That's it. Those are all done as far as that part. Now we can go on to actually putting these pills in. This thing definitely has more pills than a pharmacist. And then it looks like outer top is where they want that hole to be. So make sure that on the front and rear you're putting it to outer top. Top being where the ears are at, outer being the hex side. And do that on both of them. All right, those are all set. Then, very similar to the AE cars, you're going to have the little aluminum piece here that screws in. They want you to stick it out like this. You can alternatively put it like this if you're going to run shorter or inner link points. Instead of, I'm guessing they probably want you to do either middle or outer on the link. But you can do that. We're going to do it just like the kit says for now. These are going to be 3x12s, which we have 4 of, so it's easy to know which one that is. And since this is going into nylon, actually, no, this is going through nylon and into aluminum, so we do not need our ugga-dugga. Just need a hand driver. And it does not say to, but I'm going to go ahead and say to. This is something you're probably going to want to thread lock just to make sure it doesn't back out on you at some point, because I know on the associated ones I have had them back out, and that's just annoying. There is a concave side and a flat side. The concave side looks like they want you to have face up. It says note orientation. Looks like that probably gives the rod end clearance. Yeah, because they even make it flat spotted up here for that to set. So yeah, see, that's probably a good assumption. If you notice, there is about 1.5 millimeters of overhang on that. It's probably so that you can put a 1 millimeter ball stud washer in there if you want to shim it out just a little bit. I know on many different kits, Kyosho, TLR, and Losi, or sorry, that is TLR, Kyosho, TLR, and AE is what I'm trying to say. They have a 1 millimeter shim in there to offset those. So another little adjustment thing you can do. If you notice, I'm not putting very much thread lock on here since it doesn't call for thread lock. It's just enough just to help it stay where it's supposed to without causing any binds or anything in the future. There we go. Get another drink of tea here before it gets cold, which it probably already is. Yep, that's iced tea now. That's fine. So now we can move on to our ball stud mount. So that is going to be this last aluminum piece here. For this, we will need the chassis back over. And it'll be on the back side of the chassis here. And it looks like it curls in and faces towards the vehicle. So these are actually going to be holes for set screws to help hold the sway link if you run a sway link. And they are inset just enough that we can use a long driver and should be able to reach it in between the wing mount. That's going to be our last 2 screws, which are 3x14s. And then these will be doing by hand just because I know that I can't get my bit in there because it's close enough that the bit won't reach for the power driver. There is a slight offset, so when you go to get these out, you may need to use a ball-in driver if you can't quite get your flat tip all the way in without taking the wing mount out. You just have to remember on your ball-in drivers to be careful not to strip out the head of the button head screw, because the ball ends do have less surface area, so you can strip them out if you're not careful. And everything is good here. I'll move on to the next step, which is installing our hubs. That's the word I'm looking for. Brain fart. Hubs are identical. There is not a right or left, so it doesn't matter which side they go on. So they're gonna just drop down in like this. It's wanting us to use the 3mm spacer, so it's gonna be this big fat guy here. And that's going to go on the back of the vehicle. So it's going to be a shorter wheelbase setup is how we're going right off the bat, which I may actually want to do anyway. So I may have to change that to a longer wheelbase depending on what the track layout for Trail in the Hill is going to be. Longer wheelbase is more stable for high-speed track. Shorter wheelbase is better if you have a lot of technical section, like mid-track usually is. And then there's these 4 teeny tiny screws here. These are going to be your control arm screws that hold the hinge pin in place. So we need those, and we need our 2 outer hinge pins. So go ahead and slide this in. And then line it up and slide through our hub. And once it's around to the other side, you're going to try to get it as flush as possible. Jam that 3mm spacer in there, and then drive that pin through. And once it's all said and done, minus the tiny screws, it should look like that. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and take our 1.5mm driver. And then there's these small holes right here next to the hinge pin. You're just going to drive those screws in there. And that is actually what holds your hinge pin in place. If you've ever used a CustomWorks arm, it's set up the same way as this with the screw in front and back. So you can remove the hinge pin either way. Or if you're familiar with Associated, they're usually conical in the front to close it off, and then they use the hinge pin screw in just the back. Same premise either way. Actually, we'll wait on that. Sometimes I can pinch the sleeve shut. Okay, and then 3mm is jammed up in there. Trying to line it up as best as possible. Not the easiest thing in the world sometimes. All right, and then put your hinge pin screw. Nice. Very good. And then I've got our front one. Hey, now, let's quiet down just a little bit, please. Don't want to wake up Mrs. Combustion RC. Oh. We've got those set and in place now. So I'm going to go ahead and move the chassis off to the side again. So now we're going to move on to the rear turnbuckles. So these are going to have a 29.5mm gap in the middle. You can just set it directly on here to get that idea, or what we can do is go ahead and get that taken care of with a digital caliper if you so have one. Otherwise, we're going to be on here. Let's see here. Just like Associated, the side with the notch is left-hand rotation, so it's backwards from the Techno. If you remember the Techno, it was flipped. On these, it is the notch is your reverse rotation, so lefty tighty. no notch, righty-tighty. Let's hope that these are a little easier than some of the other ones that I've done. These are a little bit smaller, so I think I might be able to use my puck buddy. We'll see what we can do. So I am able to use my Sticky Kicks puck buddy. Looks like these actually slide into the 3.7 pretty good there. And then my attachment actually fits on here as well. So this is going to get very easy for this, which is great because I haven't had easy turnbuckles in a while, and after that Techno kit, I really don't want to be fighting them anymore. So I'm just going to jam that into the end of our driver here. If you're doing this by hand, it's going to be a very similar situation, just not as easy. Now it shows it going down until there is no threads left, so we're going to go ahead and take it all the way down until there is no threads left. Remember, the other side is reverse rotation, so you're going to be doing counterclockwise. It's going to get warm in your hand. That's okay though. And then nice. Are these titanium? That did not get very hot for how much friction was on that. I don't know. We'll find out though. These need to go. Oh, that's these are not true to size. Oh boy. So we're gonna put them on and then just have to go for whatever the gusto is. Cool. This is not true to size on this page like it is in some of the other manuals, so that part is unfortunate. It's the first thing I've seen on here that I actually consider a mistake. Everything else so far has been very nice on this. So we're just going to go ahead and put them all the way down, and then we can adjust them from there once we're on the kit. I do not have a caliper, so measuring 29.5 millimeters by eye is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. But we're going to hang on to this puck buddy and this turnbuckle bit, because this is handy. Now it looks like we need our shock tool, and we should be able to actually get our eyes in here with our shock tool, which would make this really nice. And they want a 1 and 2 millimeter spacer, a 2, a 2, a 2, a 2, and then 2 1s. Oh, nice. So we're going up 3 millimeters on our inner ball stud, so that's going to be a good roll center. It's kind of where I would put it, so that's nice to see. All right, let's go ahead and do our outer one, or our inner one first, I should say. It's going to be a 1 and a 2. And then these are going on the front middle hole, which is what I assumed they would do. So I'd say that was a pretty good guess there. You can choose to thread lock or not thread lock these. That's entirely personal preference. I tend to not thread lock them and to just check them before the races. It's because sometimes you want them to be able to be easy to get in and out, and thread lock can sometimes hold the ball stud washer, and then then you're really in a pickle. As you can see, that's really towed out. So we're going to go ahead and try to correct that. Ooh, that's going to be really tight. Let's see if I have a turnbuckle wrench that can turn that. All right, see if my trusty little AE turnbuckle wrench is the same size. Or at least close enough to that I can get it to work. Oh my, yeah, that was way out of there. There we go, that looks a little better. So we can start from there. And then once we get wheels on, we can do our actual adjustments. But that's a good starting point. Oh. And then I know I've said this before. I don't think this is saying it. It is not. They're not even doing it themselves in the picture. Okay, so the little line, I always make those all face the driver's side of the car, so the left side of the car. So this is facing you, so this is the driver's side. That's just what I do, personal preference thing. Makes it easier to know what adjustments are going to do what when all your turnbuckles are facing the same direction. If you remember, one of them on the Techno is facing the wrong direction and it drives me crazy, but I don't want to have to take it all apart. Now we need to readjust that one because right now this one is towed way out. So now they should be both in a touch. I'll give this one just a little bit more in. I'll take this one out just a tick. Yes, I am eyeballing my camber without tires even being on there yet. This one needs to go out just a little bit more. Right there. It's roughly the same on both sides now. And we're going to hang off on getting into bag 4 because bag 4 is when we start doing front end stuff. For now, our rear end is done. So we're going to go ahead and call this one a day. Notice I did have to strip the hoodie because it did get quite warm under the lights here. I will say that this has been a pretty good build so far. There's some new little quirks that X-Ray does that I'm not used to with building AE kits. And it's been a learning experience. So I hope you're learning along the process with us. And as always, keep the rubber side down, the shiny side up, and remember to stay in the groove.